Moving on to the latest business news now on the programme. Still no breakthrough. What a surprise. I think we're going to be saying this for a few days in Washington after Joe Biden held talks with congressional leaders over the issue of raising the country's debt ceiling. It comes as the government is slowly running out of cash, doesn't it, Charles?
That's right. A few days, that would be even good. We're not more talking about a few weeks. The U.S. Treasury Secretary has previously said the United States could default on its debt as soon as early June if the borrowing limit isn't increased. This was Joe Biden's first major meeting with leaders from Congress and especially with the Republican House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Well, all involved stuck to their positions, with Republicans saying they submitted a bill in the House of Representatives to raise the debt ceiling until March of next year, while forcing spending cuts and other policy changes. And Biden and the Democrats saying raising the debt ceiling should be done without any preconditions, and that talks on spending should take place only after that's happened. Another session of talks is scheduled for Friday between the president and the congressional leaders. Take a listen now to Kevin McCarthy after the meeting.
I'm Speaker of the House. I'm not the leader of the Senate. I'm not the president. So your question is, it will not default? I've done everything in my power to make sure it will not default. We have passed a bill that raised the debt limit. Now, I haven't seen that in the Senate, so I don't know.
Moving on now, EU member states will be meeting this Wednesday to discuss proposed new sanctions over Russia's war in Ukraine. That would be the 11th sanctions package since the invasion began. The new measures would, for the first time, be directed at companies that are in so-called third countries, including China and Iran, and would also seek to penalize countries that help circumvent existing sanctions, as they are used as transiting hubs for banned EU products. Now, these are products like microchips that are commonly found in refrigerators, printers, or electronic calculators, and can be repurposed for Russian military equipment. Just some of the items of a very long list of 155 pages. This just one of the many facets of the sanctions directed at Russia, along with oil embargoes and price caps or asset freezes, all of which have taken a toll on the Russian economy. In 2022, GDP fell 2.1% in the country, and forecasts for this year show that the recession could continue, with estimations ranging between a drop in 2.5% of GDP or a slight increase of 0.7%. Well, on the stock markets this Wednesday morning, shares on the major Asian indices are falling ahead of fresh U.S. inflation data later in the day. We can see the Shanghai Composite down over 1.33%, and Nikkei in Tokyo down 0.33%. Inflation levels are a key factor in the U.S. Federal Reserve's decision-making when it comes to setting interest rates. A stubbornly high inflation rate would encourage the American Central Bank to keep its rates high or even push them higher, making borrowing money more expensive. And meanwhile, oil prices are edging lower, this as crude inventories in the U.S. are showing stockpiles increase by more than 3.5 million last week, pointing to weak demand for crude. You can see the West Texas Intermediate currently trading around $73 a barrel, and the Brent crude currently trading around $76 a barrel. Toyota is looking ahead with confidence. The Japanese car maker is forecasting a 10% increase in annual income, with sales expected to grow as a global microchip supply shortage is easing. This after it saw its profits surge 35% in the first quarter of the year. Results helped by the weak yen boosting the value of sales abroad, and higher output making up for the rise in material costs. And the French government is trying to figure out how to prevent foreign car makers like Tesla from using up the environmental bonus for electric cars. The U.S. manufacturer has just dropped its prices to qualify for the government incentive. This has sent sales skyward to the detriment of French automakers like Renault and Stellantis. James Mulholland has this.
Is Tesla en route to using up all of France's environmental bonus? The US car maker has been bringing down prices to make more of its vehicles eligible for the subsidy on new electric cars. That was enough to convince this motorist in the Paris region.
The car is worth 45,000 euros, so 6,000 euros back is a good amount. Before I had a Japanese hybrid, now I'm 100% electric.
With a government incentive of 5,000 to 7,000 euros, Tesla's sales have gone through the roof. The Model Y has become the highest-selling electric car in France, with over 9,300 sold in the first quarter, much to the displeasure of domestic car makers. To stop all the cashback flowing out of the country, the government is considering limiting the bonus to European-made cars. But Tesla has already thought of that.
Tesla is already one step ahead. To get around this, it aims to make its gigafactory in Berlin the third biggest plant, after the US and China.
France could add further conditions to qualify for the incentive, such as limiting the handout to cars produced with low-carbon energy, like renewable or nuclear.
We'll be back in an hour's time for the opening of the European markets, Stuart.
Thanks very much, Charles. Charles following all of that for us here on France 24, our business editor.